All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Hope things are well for you on this Tuesday. The Tuesday after a very, very active first of the month in the world of football, which is a surprise. Usually, June is not an active month for football stuff. But yesterday, we had quite a bit happen. Some has a fairly direct impact on the Seahawks. Some of it has an indirect impact on the Seahawks, and some of it has minimal impact on the Seahawks. But a lot went down yesterday, and I think that we as fans are still trying to pick through it and try to understand what's going on here. So we are going to be focusing on the aspect that has a more direct impact on the Seahawks here, but yesterday was pretty active. This video is sponsored by PrizePicks. And yeah, we're talking more about the Myles Garrett thing. I already made a couple videos talking about this yesterday, but there's more that need be said. There's more that need be gotten into here. And I want to be a little bit more constructive today in terms of where we go from here as Seahawks fans who want the team to do the right thing. And obviously, yesterday, I know that there are people trying to spin it. I know that there are people out there trying to say, oh, it's not that big a deal. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I've seen the things that people are saying, trying to make this Myles Garrett thing not that big of a deal. I don't buy any of it. So not gonna sit here and try to do anything about that. I think Myles Garrett is a phenomenal player and will probably be a phenomenal player for the next couple years and will be a great player for years after that. And I think that it's possible the Seahawks would not have been able to match the trade offer the Rams made, but I don't know it for sure. Again, it really depends on how you view Jared Verse as a player. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm furious that this Seahawks team wasn't able to top the offer that the Rams put on the table for the Browns, but I am wondering about it still. So I haven't really been moved off of any of that. But this video is going to be about something a little bit different. What do the Seattle Seahawks do now that this has happened? Because we can't go back in time and make a Myles Garrett trade that's better than the trade the Rams did. The trade's done, at least pending physicals, I guess. So that being the case, what should the Seattle Seahawks do in response? And the way I see it, there are two different ways you can go here, and this is probably something I'm going to go into over the course of multiple videos. But the bottom line is this. The Rams have addressed probably their biggest issue from last year, the cornerback position, with the McDuffie and Jalen Watson pickups. And they have bolstered an already very good defensive line. And I know they lost Verse, but I personally believe that Garrett is much better than Verse. I know some people seem to think that they're more close to each other than they are far apart, but I think there's a big, big difference between those two players. And they have supercharged their roster, which was already very good, and the Seahawks have not. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the PrizePicks app, where it always feels good to be right. PrizePicks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. PrizePicks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. PrizePicks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on PrizePicks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. So you're dealing with that. And by the way, there's been no official confirmation on this yet. We don't even know if this is a real possibility, but we might have to deal with this. Like, it's not impossible. There are people speculating, and I know it's just speculation, but it's not unfathomable that we could end up having to deal with Aaron Donald coming out of retirement to play some interior defensive tackle for the Rams this year, and that would just make things all the more challenging. And just imagine that Rams team that last year was a good team, adding all this stuff and not really losing all that much. As of right now, the Rams have not really lost that much from last year, right? What, Havenstein retired, who wasn't even playing by the end of the year? Yeah, there wasn't really a lot that the Rams lost. At least not a lot of stuff that's really going to be missed. Like what, Tutu Atwell? So, with that being the case, like I said, the Rams have clearly supercharged their roster this offseason, and the Seahawks have not. And that's not to say the Seahawks have done anything wrong. I don't necessarily believe they have approached this offseason poorly, but I think with the information that we now have, we can reasonably conclude that we may not have what it takes to be the best team in the league this year and to repeat as champions as things stand right now. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but I do think there's a compelling argument to be made that if the Seahawks do not move forward in some appreciable way over the next couple months, or at the very least by the trade deadline, they are going to get left behind. Or at the very least, I think it would be fair to say it's up to the Rams. And here's what I mean by that. Yes, the Rams could go wrong. Things could go badly there. Players can get hurt. Players could fail to mesh. Players could get old. Players could just not work well together. Like, there are things that can go wrong here. But they're not necessarily things that are within the sphere of control of this Seahawks team, if that makes sense. Those are things that the Rams are going to be dealing with, and either they'll get through it or they won't. So what I'm trying to get at here is that there's two choices in front of us here, and this isn't a case where I think either choice is clearly correct. And that's kind of a weird thing for me to say, because normally in this circumstance, I would be pedal to the metal. But I'm not so sure that's right. So let's talk about the two options briefly here, and then I'm probably going to do separate videos in the coming days, breaking it down more specifically. But here's what I'm asking in this video, and I just want to be very general about it. The Seahawks, sitting here right now on January 2nd, can do one of two things. They can try to keep up with the Joneses. They can try to just say, okay, we're going to find a way to match what the Rams have done this offseason. Maybe not exactly, but generally. They traded for this guy, we're going to trade for that guy. They traded for this guy, we're going to trade for that guy. We're going to basically extend ourselves the same way the Rams have extended themselves, giving up draft picks and maybe even some intriguing young players to allow our roster to be where their roster looks like it is right now. And that would be no small thing. That would not be some minor insignificant trade. That would not be a Rashid Shaheed trade. That would not be even an Ernest Jones type trade. You would need to kind of go big here. You would need to go along the lines of the Leonard Williams trade from a few years ago, if not even bigger than that. And everybody's got names in their head right now when they're thinking about who they could go after and things they could do. Maybe you do go trade for Max Crosby. Maybe you try to spin up a trade for Brian Burns. Maybe you come up with something that nobody's talking about right now. Like maybe you take a chance on TJ Watt because that would be a little bit cheaper and there's risk involved. Maybe you do a trade that nobody's thinking about right now. Like, there are intriguing things on the table here that you can still do at this point. But then there's another choice here, and I feel kind of weird suggesting this, but the other option is to just let it happen. And basically, you don't go crazy, you just do what you were planning on doing. Maybe you sign Jadeveon Clowney in August. Maybe you do that, but you were probably going to do that anyway. Maybe you make a trade at the trade deadline. Maybe you give up a 5th-round pick to get a player that you think could help you a little bit on your Super Bowl push in the end of the year. Maybe you make a small trade for a true nose tackle. Maybe you make a trade for a safety because one of your safeties got hurt. Something like that. But these are things you were going to do anyway. Basically, the other thing you can do is just say, I'm not going to let the Rams dictate what I do. I'm going to do my thing, and we're just not going to have as good a roster as the Rams. And I hope nobody objects too hard to me saying this, because I think it's a fair statement at this point. That Rams team pretty clearly has a better roster than the Seahawks right now. They do. And I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying that at the very least. I think it's pretty clear. Maybe it wasn't clear before, and I'm not saying they don't have some problems. I don't know about their interior linebacker situation. I don't know about their safety spot. Special teams is still a weakness as well, by the way, and that may end up being a big deal at some point. But you go roster for roster with the Rams, and they've got us pretty good, man. Right now, with Myles Garrett on board, I think it's pretty clear. So, do you just accept that? Just do what you were going to do anyway, play out the season, and you know what? If we don't get there, then oh well. We're rolling forward. So, if that is the case, basically the idea is if the Rams come together, if the Rams are what they look like they are, and the Rams are what they think they are, then they're probably going to win it all. And there's not necessarily a lot that we can do about it that isn't just completely off the wall. Like, yeah, we could make a big trade for Max Crosby. We can make a big trade for a Quentin Nelson. We can make a trade for a, I don't know, Bijan Robinson. We could do a bunch of crazy, nutty stuff. But you could do all that and still fail, by the way. Just because you do it doesn't mean it works. So the other option here is to just kind of kick back, let it happen. And if the Rams come together and they win the Super Bowl and they beat you for the division and they beat you in the playoffs, good for them. But we're not going to go crazy trying to keep up. And if the Rams don't live up to expectations, if they do fall off, if they do end up in a situation where players get hurt, players get old, I mean, if something happens to Stafford, the Rams are kind of all dressed up with no place to go. I don't even think Ty Simpson would play. It would probably be Stetson Bennett because he's the guy with experience. And that's a tough proposition. But do you do that and then just say, well, if the Rams fall, we'll be there to pick up the pieces. If the Rams don't live up to expectations, if things don't go their way, then we'll be there to kind of catch. We'll catch whatever falls. But we're not going to go crazy trying to keep up. Is that the play? And I would normally never advocate for something like that, but I do wonder if maybe that is the best move here because I don't know if Max Crosby closes the gap all the way. It definitely closes the gap, but I don't want to go crazy and trade for a bunch of stuff and give up a bunch of future picks, especially with next year's draft looking as good as it is, and then still not get it done anyway. So it's tough. This is a tough one, guys. Look, super teams, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. But I don't think there's anything wrong with us as Seahawks fans acknowledging that what is happening in LA right now is scary and intimidating. And you're looking at that Rams team right now, and if you just want to say, look, we'll give them the better roster. We'll let them have their super roster that is better than ours. And we don't play them till week 16 anyway. We don't play them until late December anyway. We'll take care of our business against our softer early season schedule. We'll try to win games against teams like Philly that maybe got a little bit easier yesterday, by the way. And then we'll worry about the Rams and see what state they're in at that point. It's not a bad idea. And if they're great, the way they look like they will probably be great, and they're just better than us, then that doesn't mean we have to force something right now to make it not so. All right, I'll make more videos about this in the future, but I just kind of want to present that option. I want to ask people, what do you think we should do? All right, go Hawks. See you guys later, and more stuff coming soon.